Hi, I'm Bakhtiar Sanova and welcome to A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced the U.S.-China trade talks in London next week. At least 3 people have been killed and dozens injured in the biggest drone attack on Ukraine's Kharkiv. Turkey's first hybrid rocket reaches space, breaks altitude record. U.S. President Donald Trump announced Friday that top U.S. officials will hold renewed trade talks with Chinese counterparts in London next week, following a rare call with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
3 United States officials are set to meet their Chinese counterparts in London on Monday for talks to resolve a trade dispute that has kept global markets on edge. US President Donald Trump announced the meeting in a post on social media, adding that he is hopeful for a favourable outcome. Trump's announcement comes after a phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping, which he says resulted in China agreeing to let rare earth minerals flow to the United States. Now, the US president says he wants clarity on the deal.
Well, we're very far advanced on the China deal. We wanted clarification. We had to have clarification. A little bumpy up here. We had to have clarification, and that's what we're really having the meeting about. We had a very good talk. I talked to President Xi for, I guess, more than 2 hours. We had a very good talk. It's a complicated deal, but it's a deal that's, bring us a lot of money and a lot of everything else, and we get along very well with President Xi and with China.
The United States and China have been in a trade war since February this year. It was sparked by Trump's claims that the Asian country is not doing enough to stop illegal drugs from entering the US, as well as what he described as China's long-standing unfair trade practices. The US president imposed levies on China, who then responded with retaliatory tariffs, causing the economic standoff. The last talks between the Trump administration and their Chinese counterparts held in May represented a major turning point for the global trade war, with both sides announcing they would significantly roll back their historically high tariffs.
Tensions boiled over in downtown Los Angeles after a wave of federal immigration raids swept across the city. Protesters took to the streets as reports emerged of dozens detained.
Helmeted police in riot gear clashed with protesters in Los Angeles on Friday as tear gas and rubber bullets filled the streets. Demonstrators were met with flashbangs and tear gas after some reportedly threw concrete. Authorities declared the protest an unlawful assembly. The unrest followed a day of immigration raids across the city.
We are here, united in community, joined in our indignation as to what has happened in our city, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces. Our community is under attack and is being terrorized. These are workers, these are fathers, these are mothers, and this has to stop.
Among the protesters, teacher Patty Rivas described the deportation of her aunt.
She is not a criminal. She has 3 kids, one who's a firefighter for Ventura County, and she literally risked her life to protect us. And so it's heartbreaking that they would take her mother away just because they can.
Legal access was also in question, according to immigration attorney Emily Robinson.
They just told us right now that they're suspending all attorney visits, so they're denying access to us attorneys who are here to represent clients.
And from another teacher, a plea of safety.
It doesn't feel like that when they're constantly attacking hardworking people, when they're attacking our friends, when they're attacking our neighbors. It doesn't feel like we're safe.
In a social media post, LA Mayor Karen Bass condemned the raids, saying, "We will not stand for this." The LAPD said those refusing to disperse risked arrest. Immigration officials have not yet confirmed how many people were detained.
Russia has launched one of its most intense assaults on Ukraine's second biggest city of Kharkiv since the start of the war in 2022. At least 3 people have been killed and over 20 injured, including children, after a wave of missiles, drones and aerial bombs struck residential neighborhoods. The attack is part of a broader Russian escalation, targeting multiple regions overnight.
In what officials describe as the most powerful attack on Kharkiv in over 2 years, Russia struck residential and civilian infrastructure with missiles, glide bombs and drones, leaving a trail of destruction.
It was a horrible morning in Kharkiv, which was hit by 48 Russian attack drones, Shaheds, 4 guided bombs and 2 missiles. Civilian infrastructure and residential buildings were hit.
Among the wounded, 2 children, a baby boy and a 14-year-old girl. Across Ukraine, similar attacks unfolded overnight. In Dnipropetrovsk, 2 women were injured. In Kherson, a couple in their 50s lost their lives. Ukraine's Air Force says it intercepted 87 drones and 7 missiles out of more than 200 launched by Russia. But the damage still runs deep. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the US, Europe and other countries to ramp up pressure on Russia after it launched large-scale drone and missiles attacks on Ukraine on Friday.
Please, I ask you to support all the efforts to put just pressure on Russia, to support diplomacy, political and economic pressure. Please urge for new effective sanctions against Russia and their regime for the sake of putting an end to murders and strikes, for the sake of reaching real peace, for the sake of real responsibility of Russians for the war.
US President Donald Trump said on Friday that he hadn't decided whether to deploy sanctions against Russia.
Well, I know the bill. I've studied the bill. We're going to see. I mean, if I think Russia will not be making a deal or stopping the bloodshed, 5 and 6 even. I've been saying 5 and 6, and now it's more. 1,000 a week, soldiers being killed, and people being killed. Not just soldiers, people being killed, but largely soldiers being killed. Yeah, I'd use it if it's necessary. And they've really given me that option.
While diplomatic efforts continue, peace remains elusive. Ukraine has offered a 30-day ceasefire and direct talks on Tuesday, but Russia has rejected the proposal.
Joining us now from Kiev is Oleksiy Haran, a distinguished professor in National University of Kiev Mohyla Academy. Professor Haran, welcome and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Difficult time.
Thanks a lot. Professor Haran, first of all, how is this latest wave of Russian attacks being perceived in Kiev? Is there a sense that this marks a new phase in the war?
Well, on the one hand, these are the largest Russian attacks so far, at least in recent 2 years. But in general, I would say that Russia, there's nothing new in what Russia is doing. There is just a number. Okay, and I would say that Ukrainians were adapted to this situation. So we know that it's very difficult to adapt when you get killed, when you get wounded. So we'll see how it will evolve. There is a risk of further escalation, but I would say it doesn't depend on Ukraine. To a great extent now it depends on what Trump is not doing and what Putin is doing. So basically Putin behaves in such a way which was predicted not only by Ukrainian experts, but also other international aspects. So what he is doing, he is imitating negotiations, and at the same time he is trying to continue or even to increase strikes on civilians. That's very, very important. So why does he do negotiations? Only for imitation and only to escape additional sanctions on Russia from the US.
Professor Haran, President Trump's comments suggested Ukraine had provoked the Russian response. How do you view this narrative and how is it playing in Ukrainian political circles?
Well, I would say not about political circles. I would say about, common Ukrainians. We are watching this. Well, I am professional political staff, but I'm communicating with people in the streets, in the shop, and everybody understands that what Trump is saying. Well, how to say it diplomatically, I don't know, because undiplomatically, it's craziness. Actually, he's blaming Ukraine for response to aggressor, and Ukraine bombarded Russian air drones, airfields with military aviation, and you showed on the videos that it was Russia bombarded civilians building, residential area. So that's totally different. So it's not possible to put on the same side, aggressor and the victim of aggressor. One more metaphor from President Trump. Well, you saw the kids, who are quarreling in the park. So let them quarrel for some time, and then there would be peace. Come on, it's not about kids. It's not a gay. Play game. This is a war. And, Putin is not a kid at all. He is aggressor. He behaves like Nazi. And Ukrainians are the victims of this aggression. So, frankly, we were very, very disappointed by what Trump was saying. But we are to live with Trump. So we now understand that, Americans elected Trump, and Trump is Trump. He is unpredictable. He is saying different things during one day. But what is clear is actually that he tries to escape additional sanctions on Russia. That's clear. It contradicts all his previous suggestions and promises, because he said that if Russia doesn't accept ceasefire, he would increase sanctions. And now he's saying, let's wait another 2 weeks, let's wait more, Ukrainians shouldn't do that, Very frustrating, but we are to live with. We are continuing to fight for our country, for our freedom and territorial integrity.
Professor Alexei Haran, thank you again for sharing your insights with us at this critical moment. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
At least 15 Palestinians have been killed and 50 wounded in Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, local health authorities said. The strikes targeted a multi-story residential building. Witnesses say the building was full of people when it was hit, and several nearby homes were also damaged. Rescue crews say they are struggling to reach those trapped under the rubble, describing the scene as devastating and in urgent need of heavy equipment. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel is arming local militias in Gaza in efforts to defeat Hamas. Netanyahu said the move has saved the lives of Israeli soldiers fighting in the Palestinian territory, while former Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman criticized it, saying it threatens national security. Hamas responded to Netanyahu's statement, claiming that Israel is aiming to create a state of insecurity and social chaos, and vowed to fight against the armed groups. World leaders, scientists and activists will be gathering in Nice for the United Nations Third Ocean Conference. The event in France is meant to tackle threats to the seas, from plastic to climate change.
The world's oceans are under threat from climate change, plastic pollution and rising sea levels. Now the United Nations is hosting its third ocean conference in Nice, France, aiming to find global solutions.
Ocean is not doing very well, to be completely frank, and not all countries are equally equipped to deal with sea level rise. I mean, in the global north, we have resources, we have capacity to protect the coast. In small islands, in the middle of the Pacific, there's no other options.
Oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's surface. The ocean is a key provider of vast resources and biodiversity. It's an important enabler of trade and an essential link between countries and human communities. However, it is now being threatened by multiple pressures, and pollution and overfishing are pushing marine ecosystems to the brink.
We have a tendency of using our ocean as a dumping ground. 80% of the pollution that we find on the ocean actually comes from land. A lot of this, of course, is plastic.
This year's summit will push for stronger ocean protections, more financing for marine conservation, and better use of marine science to help shape policy.
The picture is not great, but I think there are solutions. And what we know is that the ocean has a great capacity to recover. If you give it a chance, if you protect areas, if you protect key ecosystems, if you reduce some of the stresses that we are putting out there on the ocean can recover and become healthy again.
The challenge now for leaders is turning words into action to keep the world's oceans clean, healthy, and sustainable for generations to come.
Two Armenian teenagers who went missing after accidentally crossing the border into Azerbaijan have been safely returned to Armenia. The boys from the Syunik province were handed over to Armenian authorities. The two teenagers, identified as Karen Jangirian and Andrei Gyaguns, had strayed across the border near the village of Aravus in the early hours of June 6. According to David Guluns, head of the tech community, the boys had gone missing before it was discovered they had inadvertently entered Azerbaijani territory. After coordination between the relevant authorities, the teenagers were returned safely to the Armenian side. The tech community administration released a photograph of the two boys after their return, reassuring the public of their well-being. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has extended congratulations to Azerbaijan on the Kurban holiday, or Eid al-Adha, for the first time. In a post on X, he congratulated the Republic of Azerbaijan and its people on the occasion of Kurban Bayram, using the holiday's name in Azerbaijani. He wished peace and prosperity to both nations. To discuss this, I'm joined by Murad Muradov, co-founder and deputy director of the Topchubashov Center in Baku. Mr. Muradov, welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Mr. Muradov, from the Azerbaijani perspective, how significant is this kind of direct goodwill message from the Armenian leadership? Could it help foster a more constructive political atmosphere?
Well, I think this was a positive gesture, definitely, as the first one of this kind. And, for example, last year, we witnessed the first ever intergovernmental agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's related to the border demarcation and delimitation process. Now we have this first official congratulation from Armenia's head of state. Yeah, of course, these steps contribute also not on a major scale, but still to building somewhat more trust and in the peace process and into the Armenia's intentions. Of course, the problem here is that still a long time will pass until the Armenian public, at least some part of it, will be ready to accept this steps as something normal. I mean, unfortunately, so when you monitor comments from Armenian citizens about this, most of them wish to criticize Pashinyan for being too soft, and many of them mentioned the so-called taking hostages by Azerbaijan yesterday, although it was clearly a hostage and Azerbaijan released two Armenian citizens very soon. Now we definitely witness changing dynamics on the high level. Yeah, but the society will have to catch up. I mean, it will take a long time.
Mr. Muradov, within Armenia, how is this message being received politically, both by the ruling government and the opposition? Could it have any domestic political costs or benefits for Pashinyan?
Yeah, as I said, so unfortunately, the predominant part of Armenian public still perceive it very negatively as another example of Pashinyan being too soft and surrendering, as they say. And even, for example, in the example of Turkey, where like President Erdogan is routinely congratulates Armenian community on Easter Day, and even the so-called Armenian genocide commemoration day. You know, like the Turkish government usually releases a statement when it laments the Armenian victims of the First World War in 1915. Yeah, but still, the Armenian public doesn't seem to embrace this attitude. But I think Pashinyan hopes to somehow change the side of the dynamics from above. And I think if you also take the process which he is now going on between him and the Armenian Church, yeah, so it's part of his bigger strive to somehow modify dominant narratives in the Armenian society, who kind of cultivate hatred and a besieged fortress mentality. And let's see. I mean, I think it's okay. It's a positive example, but still, it must be buttressed by many other steps in practical sphere, in political, be it economic, legal, etc., etc.
Murad Muradov, thank you very much for talking to A News. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Armenia has officially set the date for its next parliamentary elections, June 7th, 2026. The announcement came from National Assembly Speaker Alen Simonyan, marking exactly 1 year until the vote. Armenia is a parliamentary republic where the legislative body elects the prime minister, who is effectively the head of the country. Earlier, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has ruled out early elections, saying any change in government will come through the scheduled vote. Azerbaijan's ambassador to the UK has rejected claims that one of Armenia's wealthiest men is facing a kangaroo court, pointing to recent international legal rulings that support the legitimacy of the proceedings.
Ruben Vardanyan, an Armenian oligarch, is currently detained in Baku facing 42 charges related to war crimes. His son recently called the trial a kangaroo court. Azerbaijan's ambassador to the UK, Elen Suleymanov, rejects these claims, saying that the process is legitimate and backed by rulings from the International Court of Justice and a UN Human Rights Panel. He points out that the court proceedings are open to the public, televised, and that Vardanyan has full legal defense.
Mr. Vardanyan is being tried on a very clear accusations of committing war crimes, managing and organizing and financing terrorist activity plus armed groups. Now, this all is not just our accusations. All the claims about so-called kangaroo court and things like that were dismissed summarily by the International Court of Justice very recently, about 2 months ago, and by the UN High Human Rights Council's group on arbitrary detentions, which completely dismissed all these accusations. What they said was that the due process is being followed, that Mr. Vardanyan is being tried on a very clear and obvious accusations, and that the court is being conducted very much along the principles and guidelines and rules of international law and Azerbaijani legislation. Now, if you follow the court hearings yourself, you could actually, court proceedings are very open. They are not closed. You could see them on TV. People followed. You could see how open it is, that he has his defense.
Suleymanov adds that Vardanyan was parachuted into Karabakh from Moscow, describing him as an oligarch who supported separatism, financed terrorism, and threatened Azerbaijani officials. He also notes that Vardanyan is sanctioned by Ukraine for supporting Russian military actions. While understanding the emotional reaction from Vardanyan's family, Suleimanov insists the court process must continue. On why the trial has lasted this long, he says the trial has taken over 550 days because real legal proceedings take time, not like Soviet-era show trials, and adds that it's Vardanyan's own legal team that has repeatedly asked for more time and resources. American political analyst Michael Doran has weighed in on the case of Ruben Vardanyan, posting on his X account that Vardanyan made billions in Russia as a crony of Putin and was parachuted into Karabakh to serve as a rival to PM Pashinyan. He also accused Vardanyan of using the Aurora Prize to manipulate high-profile Americans, naming George Clooney and Samantha Power. Ruben Vardanyan founded Russia's Troika Dialogue Bank and was a major figure in Moscow's financial sector, also supporting Armenian interests. An investigation linked Troika Dialogue to a large money laundering operation benefiting Vardanyan and his family, though he denies wrongdoing. In 2022, he gave up his Russian citizenship, moved to Karabakh, and became state minister of the unrecognized Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. Azerbaijan accuses him of funding illegal armed groups there, while experts say his move aligns with Kremlin interests in the South Caucasus.
Tensions between Georgia and the European Union are deepening. On Friday, Georgian Foreign Minister Maka Bocharishvili accused Brussels of halting the EU accession process and unfairly blaming Tbilisi. Her comments came after EU Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos warned that Georgia risks losing its candidate status, visa-free travel and the key trade deal unless it recommits to its European path. Bocharishvili insists the accession talks never truly began and claims the EU is using the process as political leverage. Georgia had already postponed negotiations until 2028, yet Western officials now accuse the government of democratic backsliding. Turkey has taken another major step in its journey to become a spacefaring nation. The country's first two-stage hybrid rocket system, developed by Delta V Space Technologies, has surpassed an altitude of 200 kilometers in a recent test, setting a new record for this type of rocket engine. The achievement marks a significant milestone for Turkey's national space program and moves the country closer to achieving independent space access. Delta V's two-stage hybrid rocket system reached an altitude exceeding 200 kilometers during a test flight, breaking the previous altitude record for hybrid rocket motors and marking a new chapter in Turkey's space ambitions. The breakthrough was welcomed by the Ministry of Industry and Technology. Minister Mehmet Fatih Kacır highlighted that Delta V Space, which is also developing the hybrid rocket motor for Turkey's planned moon mission, had secured another historic success with this latest test. The Presidency of Defense Industries, or SSB, confirmed the achievement through an official announcement on social media. The SSB stated that the Delta V developed hybrid rocket system not only surpassed the 200-kilometer threshold, but also successfully completed numerous other challenging objectives during the test flight. According to the defense agency, this success represents a pioneering advance not only for Turkey, but also globally, positioning the country at the forefront of hybrid rocket technologies. The successful test is considered one of the fundamental building blocks for Turkey's long-term space goals, including reaching the moon, developing interplanetary missions, and establishing independent satellite launch capabilities. The SSB underlined that this critical system will pave the way for more advanced missions in line with Turkey's national space program objectives. The record-setting performance also reflects the growing maturity of the country's research, development, and production capabilities in space technologies. Delta V, in an official statement, expressed its appreciation to all stakeholders involved, particularly the SSB, for their continuous support throughout the development process.
Turkey's hybrid rocket success is seen as a bold step toward greater self-reliance in space exploration and technology as the country continues to push forward with its ambitious space agenda.
A global pledge to protect the world's disappearing glaciers was signed in Dushanbe. The first high-level conference on melting glaciers gathered more than 2,500 participants from 80 countries. The Dushanbe Declaration calls for urgent global action to slow the phenomena and protect water supplies. The plan outlines emission cuts, greener production, and stronger monitoring systems. Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan have announced a new partnership to tackle the climate crisis and protect endangered wildlife. The agreement was reached on the sidelines of an international environmental summit in Kyrgyzstan. Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
In a major step toward regional environmental cooperation, Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan have agreed to work together on climate action and wildlife protection. The announcement comes after a high-level meeting on the sidelines of an international environmental conference. The Director General of Afghanistan's National Environmental Protection Agency met with Kyrgyzstan's Minister of Natural Resources during the Global Snow Leopard and Ecosystem Protection Program conference held in Kyrgyzstan. During the meeting, both sides expressed the urgent need for joint action to tackle climate change and protect endangered species like the snow leopard. They agreed to form a joint committee to follow up on shared environmental goals and expand bilateral cooperation. The talks also touched on Afghanistan's planned participation in the upcoming COP30 conference. Kyrgyzstan expressed full support and both countries reaffirmed their commitment to conservation and sustainable development. Afghanistan's delegation thanked Kyrgyzstan for its hospitality and praised the country's leadership in organizing the event. This meeting marks a significant step in building stronger environmental partnerships across Central Asia. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Caspian Coast turns into a gamer's paradise as the region's biggest celebration of gaming tech and culture, Game Summit 2025, kicks off in Baku. With cutting-edge tech talks, esports battles and support from major players. This summit isn't just a festival, it's a launchpad for the future of gaming in the South Caucasus.
Imagine a place where retro arcades, board games, battle-hardened esports pros and international game devs are all meet under the Caspian sun. It's part conference, part party and 100% a celebration of how games bring people together.
Baku is hosting the Game Summit for the third consecutive year, bringing together game developers, esports players, cosplayers from across the region. As the largest event of its kind, it highlights video games, digital art, and the broader creative industries. The festival connects local and international industry leaders, emerging talents, tech startups, and enthusiasts in one vibrant space to foster collaboration and innovation. The event opens with vibrant performances that set an energetic tone. Following the show, Azerbaijani developers took the stage to share their journeys, encouraging others to dive into the expanding gaming sector. One of the field's pioneers, Farid Hagverdiev, says that as a developer, their goal is to create a gaming ecosystem in the country.
Our goal is not only to develop games, but develop gaming ecosystem in Azerbaijan. So we develop different games. We develop games on computer, on mobile phones, on different platforms. Also, we develop for virtual reality, augmented reality, and we do not only games, but we also do gaming events.
Beyond gaming, the summit drew in a colourful crowd from the cosplay community, celebrating creativity and character design.
Atmosphere here is very beautiful. I am cosplaying a character from Genshin Impact.
I'm cosplaying Mikuya. This is the first time I'm attending this event. I liked it very much. There are so many interesting people. I'll also definitely participate next year.
Some looked like they stepped right out of a video games, while some followed the latest trends. Going back to the industry trends, developer Arif Ismailov shared the challenges of the game development process.
I'm a solo developer behind my game that's called Biomass, and as a solo developer it's very, very challenging as I develop every aspect of the game by myself, from design, from art, from AI, from sound design, from level design.
More than just a gathering for professionals, the summit also inspires newcomers, attracts the curious, and welcomes anyone who simply enjoys the atmosphere.
Before, in our country, such events like this was not very popular, so therefore I was not aware of the fact that people are able to develop AI technologies or such as new generational games. So this kind of event personally made me realize that there could be many fun things as well as technological stuff out there in the world. So as a person who attended this event, I've been enjoying it so far.
The event is open to public during the weekend, making it available for more people to attend.
Well, that's all we have for now from Baku. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned to A News.